What's up, there, niece and nephew? It's the Ronnie Coleman of Expat Relocations. Yeah, buddy. I'm over here in this fitness-oriented video with one of my favorite former clients, and well, still client, really. I mean, we still talk regularly. Now, I would almost say he's in my business network. Coach Tyson. He is an international personal trainer, and he has spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia as well as other parts of the world. But for the interest of this video tonight, he's going to tell us about what it was like for him working as a personal trainer in India. And I try to bring you guys fresh and engaging expat content. So I hope you find this one interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing about it because I love going to India. I go to India generally as a digital nomad. I do some business networking, of course, but I like the food, the yoga, the low cost of living, the diversity in the cities. So I had a really good time when I was in India recently, and I may go back again soon. So I'm curious to hear what his experience was like in India. We were in different cities. Coach was in Pune, and I believe you're in a few other places. So I would love to hear about it tonight, guys. So before we get into it, I want to remind you this video is sponsored by Safety Wing. Don't get hemmed up in a developing country without health insurance. What's up, guys? I'm in Mysore, India. I'm chilling with this cow here. If this cow were to give me mad cow disease, I would want to have health insurance. And if you're going to live as an expat, you're going to want to have health insurance too. He's either biting me or licking me. He's licking me. Aw, hello.
It's so cute.
See, if I get sick from touching this cow, I want to have health insurance, right? So Safety Wing is a good health insurance for people like me who travel around the world and live in interesting places. I'm covered. If I get sick in India, at least I got health insurance. Safety Wing is designed for people who move around and who travel, so it's the perfect health insurance for people who live our kind of lifestyle. So what first brought you to India?
Well, I had, I won't disclose my location now, but I was with my fiance and we were training, and we actually had financial backers to open up a personal training studio / kickboxing, because we're going to have some kickboxing fitness classes. And that backer pulled out last minute. We had no choice. And I had to go back to the US because my visa had expired. So went back to the US, had my tail between my legs, trained a little bit at my local gym, which is a town over, called King's Fitness. Living in my parents' basement. Yes, there are people, that is true. There are actually, so if people say, hey, you lived in your parents' basement and you trolled me on the internet. Yeah, I did it. But I really wanted to get to the Middle East. You know, the Middle East has some pretty decent income for trainers. It's got a lot of client potential, but I'm aging out. I'm 53. So being that age, a lot of times they look for youth. You know, training is one of those things where it shouldn't be, but it is, where youth is on your side. Strange, because I get a lot of boomer clients. I'm Gen X. I believe you're Gen X too, right?
I'm on the line of
Gen
millennial X. And Gen X.
Yeah. So I'm right in the middle. I'm 71, and I guess it starts 65 to 85. So I am right there and in the middle of Gen X. And unfortunately, for a lot of that, they do have age requirements. I happened to be on LinkedIn one day. I saw a place in India was hiring. I pulled up the city that was hiring, and I thought, well, this doesn't look too bad. It's Pune. Pune is what they consider the Oxford of India. And I think you had just missed it, right? You'd been in Mumbai and then Bangalore.
I went from Bangalore to Mysore, Mysore to Bangalore, Bangalore to West Bengal, West Bengal to Sikkim.
Okay, so you were close, but not quite there yet. Mumbai is on the coast, which is the largest city, and then Pune is about 3 hours in from that, and then Bangalore is farther in. But it's the Oxford of India. It did not look like what you would think of India as India, which would be, I think, like when people see the videos, the New Delhi and things like that, at least from social media. Now, when you got there, as you know, being a digital content creator, you can make chicken shit look like chicken salad, as Stone Cold Steve Austin likes to say. And it was not. It was surprising, some of the things blew my mind. The toilets in the shopping malls, they were clean. They were clean and usable. They were serviceable. I think India is on a cusp of becoming modernized, but with the amount of people they have and just some of the cultural and social things that are going on, it's not there yet, and it's a real mix. You'll have people who very, very well educated, maybe in another country, and hold degrees and multiple degrees, and then you'll have literally, they didn't use the word, but I asked about some of the beggars, and they're basically was told, yes, they're untouchable. No one will hire them. No one will deal with them, and don't give them anything. Don't, have any kind of communication with them whatsoever. Just leave them alone. When I looked, it was showing like, oh, there's a nice street, and they're showing these universities, and India it's exploding for fitness and martial arts, as you know. Okay, you've been there. It's 1.5 billion people. It is a huge market. It is definitely going to become an economic powerhouse. I thought, well, if I go there, I'm going to have a good amount of clientele. I'll explain the deal that I had with them that didn't really come as was advertised. And that is my warning. And I'm just giving, again, this is all what happened to me. It's not what's going to happen to someone else. I don't know, but there are some cultural traits of certain countries. In Thailand, they smile a lot. Doesn't matter who they are. Now, some of those smiles are not necessarily the friendliest smiles. They might mean something else. And but Thais do tend to smile. Cambodians can tend to be very kind. So because you bang around the same areas that I bang around, and India, it's let me see. It has a lot of well-earned reputation for being a place of scammers. And in fact, a lot of Indians told me. In fact, I found the people to be generally nicer than I thought they would be. I didn't realize they would be as nice. And thankfully, and I don't know if it's the city, maybe one of your viewers will let you know, but they would always warn me. And they would say, hey, watch out. There's a lot of scammers out there. Be real careful. Mm-hmm. It was more that than any kind of I don't think crime is particularly high. I think probably petty thefts. You wouldn't want to, leave your phone down for any period of time, or, have your bag open. Now, you and I are big, bald dudes. You do travel with Meech, so maybe you can see it a little bit, but I don't know how a female would be. Maybe that would be a different dynamic.
When we were teaching jujitsu, a lot of the females in the class would tell us that as soon as they walked to their motorbikes, they would get harassed. We were in the South, so we were mostly in Mysore and in Bangalore. And I don't think, in my opinion, that those cities are super safe for a woman, but they have these little islands where there's very educated people, and it's very modern. And in those places, it's pretty safe. But there's other places in the city where maybe people come from other states. There's infrastructure problems, it's dark on the whole street. I mean, this is not really conducive to safety. But I think if you move around, at least in the state that I was in, Karnataka, if you move around using Uber and you stay with cars at night rather than rickshaws, I think it is pretty safe. And I found the same. The people, at least in where I was in South India, the people were so nice and generous. Really friendly, nice, generous people. It seemed genuine. I'm still new to the culture, obviously, but it seemed genuine. And then I spent time in the Himalayas, man. And the Himalayas is a different world because they look East Asian. A lot of the people are Buddhist or more of a Nepali kind of Hindi. They speak Nepali. So the culture, and it's matriarchal. So the women are the heads of the household. So I would say in Sikkim, it is safe for women for the most part. Obviously, some places less than others, but for the most part, But you felt overall that Pune was a pretty safe city.
Well, it was a university. There's multiple universities there, so there was probably more young single females in Pune than any of the other cities. I tried to do my due diligence. The problem with Asia is oftentimes, and I'm including India. Now, I had dealt with Indians in Thailand and other places. And I dealt with very, very wealthy Indians. In fact, I would call them citizens of the world because they have multiple passports. They may have Indian genetics, but and they do a lot of Indian, like celebrate the holidays and things, but their attitude might be more, like a British or something like that, like a high class, like a wealthy person. I think wealthy people the world over, when you have that type of wealth that some of the clients that I had, it's just totally different. You're not mixing with people on the ground, or even like, where I was as emerging middle class, because Bangalore is the number one tech center. Pune is probably number two in that state. And that's because of all the university graduates. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the bulk of the gym. And that was the problem. They thought I would come in being a Westerner. I tried to explain to them, and here's where I know that there was a disconnect. Was they wanted a dancing white monkey. I don't know if that's where you got the name for your, but the teacher dancing white monkey. But it works the same in fitness. And the family that had bought the gym chain bought it from an American woman, and I believe her Indian husband, and they had Westerners in before. And having those Westerners in before, from what I was told, the manager at the branch that I was at, because they wanted me to be at one branch first, and then they found out that I was able to do a lot more. They were younger. They were probably in their 20s. They were there to shake hands, pat backs, and try and make the franchise look international, because they have one in is it Dubai? They have one in the Middle East. I think it is Dubai, and then one in the UK, and they're supposed to open one in the US, but I don't know that it's going to happen, because these people don't know fitness. The people that bought it, they tried to maintain some of the people from the owners before. My experience, it was just it wasn't good. They did. I don't think they did the due diligence as far as the demographic. Indians haggle a lot. Indians are very, very price conscious. Very price conscious. And I find oftentimes, and this is not just an Indian trait, but another trait that tends to be in Asia, and probably more of an East Asian trait, not a Southeast Asian trait, but Indians are more in that line when it comes to the haggling, is they have to win in a business exchange. Can't be a win-win situation. Can't be you're happy, I'm happy. Here's the price, here's the product or the service. We're both happy. I felt like they weren't happy as a client unless they could really chew that price down to the absolute minimum. And then, as employers, oh man, first of all, they didn't know what they were doing. They just, and I'm sure you've seen it. You've been everywhere. Fitness is the new bar. When I first went to Thailand, I went to Thailand in 2003 to learn Muay Thai. And it was raw. It was not the Thailand of the 80s or 90s. It's starting to change, so all the people who stayed after the Vietnam War, it wasn't quite that raw, but it was still quite raw. And, they were happy to have Westerners. And it was just, it was traveling in the early 2000s was fantastic. It was tough. We didn't have the smartphones. And I used to have to go 3 streets over to use a payphone to call back a US number. And I'm dyslexic. So, I was given this like 16-digit number. Then I had to have put in my parents' number, and I call my parents at whatever time and wake them up at 3:00 in the morning, because they had these international phones that you bought this international phone card at 7-Eleven. And then once, Skype came in, and once smartphones became really good with the that just changed everything. But the thing is, then people would come over heavily into drinking, heavily into the girls. They would blow their life savings, as we say, the punters on a bar, and have no idea how to run it. And they would be out of business in 6 months. Well, fitness is becoming the new bar. Now, also, like bars and hotels, which is one way that people hide money from maybe less than legal means, because they're high. They used to be high cash. from what I understand now, is fitness is one of the new ways to launder money. And I'm not saying that is this place. I don't know, but I was told that in Vietnam, of all places, I was told, hey, because I said, wow, there's some really big, really nice gyms with brand new equipment. They don't have any members. How do they stay open? And I was just taken aside, and they said, look, you're being naive. This is how they're cleaning their money. And I said, oh, okay, makes sense. But I don't know that was the case. But then they don't have people that know how to run things. And no matter how good the gym looks, and no matter how seemingly squared away it is, I mean, gyms are always soap operas to begin with. It's a personalized business. So when you have that many people, and then you have people who are going to have egos, as they should have egos, there's always some level of drama, more than I would prefer, because in my age, I'm over and done with that. But that comes to, like, my contract was written one way, but the reality is different.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I could honestly relate to a lot of what you're saying, because over the years of helping people set up companies and stuff like this, I've encountered a lot of people who, despite what advice you give them, they're just not going to be successful because they're already coming at it with like a completely naive mindset about the industry and about business. But they have money and they want to go for it. And, like, if they have lots and lots of money and they want to go for it, I mean, like, I already, in my head, I know the kind of people that you're talking about. So please continue.
Well, okay. So if you're in a culture where business has to be a winner and a loser, and not both sides are happy. I always do business. And, when I met you, you guys had just started, and I actually wasn't able to take advantage because of COVID, lockdown again. But I wasn't upset at all. I told everybody, I said, hey, Jay and Meech, they gave me everything I needed to be successful. They gave me all the information. I got what I paid for. I said, just because I wasn't able to utilize it is not their fault, because, I mean, what can anybody do during these crazy COVID?
Yeah. We stayed in touch and have continued to be friends. So I'm really glad I met Coach. And when he started telling me about India, I was like, man, I got to hear, because it's such an unusual place to go and work, especially like I'm in martial arts. So I'm around gyms and stuff. I've been around gyms a long time, and it's very curious to me, like, what that was like. Like, I was teaching some jujitsu in Mysore and in Bangalore, but I wasn't asking for any money. So it was almost like, I just wanted a free place to train. I was the highest level. It was that type of thing.
Yeah. And like I said, I've always thought martial arts, and I may be wrong about this, so some people can correct me. I always found that martial arts, because they're a very objective. If you get somebody on the mat and you smoke them, or you get somebody in the ring and you smoke them, there's no questions. The problem with fitness, which tends to be a little bit more like bodybuilding and not like powerlifting, where it's, a higher number wins, tends to be a little more subjective, a little bit more ego. I've always felt martial arts were a little cleaner than fitness, the pure fitness side. And like I said, I know people who've had problems with other martial artists and drama on that front. I mean, gyms are gyms. The problem with these people is they want you to work an 8-hour day. And I've always worked split. In fact, I told them before they offered it, they said, we want you to work split. I said, look, my clients are in the mornings and the evenings. It's nice when we can get afternoon clients on lunch breaks, but the reality is the bulk of my business is made in the morning before people go to work, or if they go to work later, and in the evening when people are finished with work. And they thought, well, that's great. Well, what they decided to do is every meeting, every mandatory whatever program or class was scheduled in that break time. So instead of going home and getting your nap, you had to go to some stupid meeting.
Oh, I see.
You see how they do it. Because the people in the office, they work, well, this office didn't work really 9 to 5. This is like 11 to 7. A lot of the people worked for whatever reason. But I think some of them had different schedules, staggered schedules. But the office people, all the admin, were 5 days a week, 9 to 5. Me, they wanted 6 days a week. And I've always worked what I say 5.5. I'll train people like Saturday morning, because it's hard for me to get to martial arts. That's one of my problems with my industry, is I have to work when people are off. Well, like martial arts classes are generally in the evenings. So unless I'm teaching a martial arts class, for me to take a martial arts class, because I love to take stuff, it's very difficult because I not only do I have to pay for the class, but then I lose money because I'm not working, where it's usually someone's after work time. But on this instance, it was always, okay, finish up in the morning and, hey, could you come in the head office and we're going to have this meeting, or we have this scheduled during this time. And they didn't think it should count towards the hours.
Oh, they want to pay you.
They would say, well, they didn't want to pay you. That was a wash. No, meetings don't count. Meetings aren't work. Classes aren't work. We have a training scheduled. That's not work. We only pay you when you're actually at work. So if you put in 60 hours this week, you're still only going to get paid for, what was agreed to on my contract is 48 hours. But like I said, they would have this stupid stuff. Well, and here's the, and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, he was very difficult to work with. He'd make his way, come and go as he wants. And I was like, yeah, because if I work 4 hours in the morning and I have 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon, that's 8 hours. I'm not going back then in the evening and putting in another 8 hours when you assholes are only going to pay me 48. But that was their mindset, because they would do it also to the Indian employees. And they would try, and I don't know how the other company treated their foreign staff. But see, I was the first. So first of all, they had a girl who was in human resources, had no idea what she was doing. I had to schedule my own flight.
Okay.
Because I was in the middle of central Pennsylvania, which is a good 6-8 hours from New York City. And I told her, I said, don't try and fly me. I said, it's easier to fly out of Philly or here or there. But, my parents are getting up there. I prefer to fly out of Harrisburg, which is South Central where I am. And that's like an hour away from my hometown. The next thing I know, I'm talking to her on WhatsApp, and she says, oh, I have a flight scheduled to you for right out of JFK. How can you get to JFK? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not taking a train. I'm not taking a car. I'm not getting on a bus, going up to JFK and then trying to get to Mumbai and then trying to get to Pune. They just unreasonable when it comes to thinking outside the box. Their skill sets are all over the place. Like I found, when it came to programming classes, their skill set was they're very good at using Chat GPT, which I just kind of got into the last few months. And I could see that they were using that. And I said, well, that doesn't work for everybody. And every client should not be using that. I mean, one particular day, the electricity went off and this gym was in a shopping mall, pitch black. They were still allowing people to work out. And I said, what are you doing? It's dangerous. You can't see. They're running a class, like a CrossFit style class in the middle of the gym, because that was their, what do they call their selling point, right? So they're running the CrossFit style class and other people are working out in the general, and it's like pitch black. And, people had their phones on their lights, or their light on using their phone as like a flashlight. And I'm like, this is dangerous. You can't do this. I said, you guys swinging kettlebells and nobody knows that they're going to walk into it and get clocked by a 12-kilo kettlebell.
Wow.
Or one guy was squatting and I'm just like, no, this is, I went home that day. I mean, the beginning of the end, when I just had enough of it and I threw my hands up and I just started kind of just pulling away. They, they had, I was supposed to, also the paperwork, they don't, India is very like, oh yes, we'll take care of this paperwork. You have to keep on them and you find out you're doing something, illegal, and it might come back on you, but they haven't done what they're supposed to do as the employer. They're not keeping you up to date. They'll do things and not tell you what's going on. Like I was at the airport, and I'd had it. I left. I said, I'm out of here. You guys, I mean, I'm still in a lawsuit. I have to write stuff down for the lawyer in India and try and get paid because they owe me about $1,200 US. I was supposed to have a paper that was connected to my visa to leave. They never gave me that paper. Thankfully, they actually did register me with the government. So when they pulled me up on the computer and they took me back into immigration at the airport, I was actually on the computer. But they're like, why didn't they give you the paperwork? You're supposed to have this paper in your possession. And I'm like, that's why I'm leaving. It was in my contract to have housing. They took the deposit out of the first pay that they paid me, which was not in my contract. And it was never written up that way. In fact, to get paid, because I didn't have this government paperwork, I couldn't get a bank account. So I said, well, you got to just give me the cash. Well, oh my God, it took like 2 weeks. And then that's when I found out they took the deposit out for my apartment out of my pay. So what had happened is they said, oh, it's illegal. I can't take that much money out of the bank at one time. I said, no, you're lying. Oh, it's illegal to pay you cash. I said, no, you're lying. I've talked to other people that you've paid cash to. I know you can pay me cash. You owe me this cash. It took like 7 to 10 days and I have everything, but it took like 7 to 10 days to finally get paid. They took me in the office. I have all these stacks of rupee, which, I didn't want that kind of cash around my place, but they did put me in a nice apartment. Originally, I was going to stay in this bungalow that the family who owned the business owned the bungalow. Supposed to have Wi-Fi, didn't have Wi-Fi. Normally you would think if somebody came to a country brand new, you'd have a checklist and say, okay, this is what we're going to, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. None of that. The girl overseeing me was, and 27's not young, but you would have thought she was a teenager because she had no responsibility. Time frames are, you know how Asia can be with time. They just don't get time. They would leave me stuck and I'd say, hey, where can I get some food that's not going to make me sick? I mean, that's another thing. They want you to go to work and stuff, but until you get your immune system up to India, and I don't know about you, but for me, the first, I would say 6 weeks I was there. I don't know if you were there long enough, or maybe just 2 weeks at a time, but the first 6 weeks I was there, I had food poisoning 5 times.
I was there 6 months.
Oh, for the longest you were there 6 months.
Yeah. I was there 6 months.
Okay,
and,
so
I was about
so you probably.
I didn't really have problems with food poisoning because the cities that I chose in India to go to, I chose them based on like searching the most hygienic cities in India and the safest and highest quality of life cities. So like Mysore had made the list a number of times and a good friend of mine had recommended it. And I stayed in the yoga bubble. So next door to my house was an organic restaurant where I could eat healthy, clean food for like feed 2 people for $6. There was yoga shalas every 50 meters. So the area I stayed in had a lot of clean food. I did have some situations where I had to run to the bathroom, but I think it was more getting used to the heavy amounts of spice that they used in some dishes. But again, I was in South India, so I don't know the cuisine, if it's the same up in Pune. I imagine it's different. In South India, they don't eat as much oily food. It's a lot more like dosa, idli, that type of thing.
I think the food is fairly similar. Pune is, again, supposed to be one of the cleaner cities, being a university city, a newer city. And maybe it's just, my constitution. I don't know. I've lived outside the U.S. for over 20 years. I eventually just stopped getting sick. And again, maybe it could have been the spice. I had, what is that spinach dish with the cheese in it? It's famous all over the world.
Paneer.
Yeah. I had that in a very classical Indian place, and I could barely eat it. I mean, I was getting bubble gut 3 or 4 bites in, had so much spice. But they told me, I was supposed to be able to eat at the mall. That was supposed to be cleaner. I'd gotten a bit sick there a few times. I never got to the point where I was really, really bad. Like I've had food poisoning where every 20 minutes it's coming out of everywhere for a week. I mean, when I was in Thailand at Muay Thai camp back in 2004, I had ate out in the street with a Thai friend. They didn't get anything. And thankfully, they stayed with me for the week that I was sick. Probably should have went to the hospital after 2 or 3 days, but I lost quite a few kilo, and I was really bad. Fetal position in the bathroom for a while. Happened to me in Cambodia too. I missed a flight. I was on the floor in the bathroom for 3 days.
I got it in Malaysia a few times, Vietnam, of course,
Yeah, I mean, it just, yeah, and I don't think I've never gotten food poisoning in Vietnam. I lived there almost a year, and so
And
yeah, it just depends where you are. Maybe it's just the luck of the draw, or maybe it's just the type of foods or what have you. But so if somebody were going to go over there, they should be aware you're probably going to get sick,
oh, definitely.
even trying to be
If you,
clean. And what really got me is I'm very in tune to my environment. I don't like a lot of when it comes to Thailand, they say, which beach would you rather go to, Pattaya or Hua Hin? I'm Hua Hin all the time.
yeah,
I
me
like
too.
slow. I like clean. I don't like nonsense. I go to the gym. I go to bed at a decent hour. Try and eat healthy. I'm not a big drinker. I don't smoke. So if it's full on just party mode or what have you, that's not for me. But another thing is like just wanton littering. One of the things that really disturbed me, because India has beautiful wildlife. I found a new favorite bird. I don't know if they ever had one before, but there's this bright green bee catcher that darts around that was outside my first bungalow that was absolutely stunningly gorgeous. Also, they had these black hummingbirds when the sun would hit them. So they had this beautiful, but the second apartment I was in, it just, if you looked at, you didn't really look close into the woods. It looked really nice. It had, oh, okay, we got some, wooded area around the apartment. You looked into it a little bit, and there's just garbage everywhere. People
Mm.
throwing, I know from the main office to the gym I was working at, we went over a bridge. I don't know if it was large enough to be a river. I think it was a river, and just garbage up and down, floating down the river, up and down the banks of the river. I don't think you can really realize how filthy a place can be. And not every place, because again, this is India starting to change. So I think some of the education's catching up, some of the, other places, like I said, none of the bathrooms in the shopping malls, there was 2 shopping malls in my area, and they were all clean, but they still have that, people just like really litter, can be really dirty. A lot of throwing just as soon as they're finished with a soda bottle, it's on the street, cigarette on the street, whatever. That I didn't like at all. That was also really disturbing to me because there was just places with just looked like a junkyard, just mounds of like a field or something. Then the cows will be eating it. So
I saw some of that in Mysore, and like there would be cows eating out of piles of garbage, and I saw it in
yeah.
Bangalore. But I would say for me, like being in Asia for a long time, I'm not really super surprised by it. Like it's worse than I would say in Southeast Asia, and the infrastructure when I was there definitely was behind Southeast Asia. But there's in other ways it was also sometimes a little bit impressive. Like they had some initiatives to protect women in Bangalore where they had like female only cops on the train stations, which I thought was really interesting. From what I was told by some of my friends from the jiu-jitsu club, like if someone were to harass or bother a foreigner, the police would actually help you. Whereas in Vietnam, you'd have to pay them, or in Cambodia, you'd have to pay them if you wanted them to do anything. So I've heard some interesting things about India. Like you said, it's changing very quickly. So this is again just Coach's experience. This is not everybody's experience working in India, obviously. And there are cities where expats enjoy. I am not working, but I do enjoy spending time as a digital nomad in Karnataka. I've been to Coorg. I've been to Mysore. I enjoyed my time in the Himalayas. It's amazing, but maybe with the infrastructure issues, not super good for a digital nomad. I did think Karnataka state was very livable, especially in certain places. Had you not had the negative experience with the job, would you have lived in Pune? Is Pune a place that you like a lot?
Had they been a little better, I was definitely in there to be for a year. The condo that I was at,
Mhm.
although they had a stupid rule where everything was closed on every Thursday. So one of the days they had a training or something, and I just said, well, look, I'm not coming back in the evening because I've already put in 10 hours. And I wanted to use the gym and I didn't realize it was Thursday. And they said, oh, the whole area, no condo, not just our condo, no condo. But they have very strange, arbitrary laws. Could I have, I met a couple of people who are friends. One person absolutely despises India, but she's there. I'm not going to let her name out, but She put her lot in. She was living in Dubai, a European woman who was living in Dubai, came to Pune. I became friendly, and she helped me a lot. And then Richard, who has the Cobra Muay Thai and MMA, really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
His guys seem to be pretty good. He has a nice MMA club. He created it not because he's a high-level MMA guy, but because he had nowhere to train. So he wanted to bring in some
Right, same as
higher-level
me.
Indian MMA guys. Yeah.
Mm.
So he likes it. He found his feet. I forget exactly what kind of business he's in. It's more like a tech type thing, which would help because there's a lot of tech in Pune, and the tech people, they can be as good as anybody. The people in the fitness industry, and they used a lot of the people. Fitness is still a lot of places considered low end employment. It's not
Mm-hmm.
considered a prestigious job. So a lot of the people you're working with are not highly educated. There's a lot of bodybuilders. I mean, when I first was going to the head office, that surprised me that the other trainers and stuff, there was a few that would come up to me and say, "Hey, it's great to meet you, and I hope we can learn." Other ones would just, I fuck you. It's also the access to information now makes people think they're better at things than they are. I've been 30 years in the industry, and I'm in no way am I a top guy worldwide or anything like that. I'm just a good, solid personal trainer, strength coach. I think I really know my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I still follow people. I still, try and educate myself as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely some of the, oh, he's a Westerner and he thinks he knows it all. That didn't happen in Thailand till like the 2010s, 2015, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
They really would look up to you in Southeast Asia. Now it's again that's starting to change because they're like, oh, we're just as good as you are. It's like, well, I've been in the industry 30 years, and I've not too good to clean toilets, and I've worked front desks, and I've worked every different position in a gym, so I think I know them inside and out. Am I an expert? Obviously not, but I think I know my stuff. But there's a little bit of that going on too, and probably, like I said, not so much with the tech. I mean, the tech people will tell me straight out, we want to work with like Western companies, especially American companies, because they treat us a lot better. And the work, like they are more concerned with the hours you put in than the quality, is my experience. They want you there all the time. It doesn't matter that you're dragging. It doesn't matter that you're like half asleep. It doesn't matter that you're getting out of shape. I said, well, a lot of these trainers are getting out of shape. And it's, oh, well, they live pretty far away. And by the time they get home, it's late at night. And then they have to be here first thing in the morning to open the gym. So they only get to sleep like 4 hours. And I'm like, well, why do you have, well, because most of our business is in the morning and the evening. So, and it's too far for them to go back in the middle of the day. So, you come in the middle of the day and they're all sleeping in the trainer room. They're all sacked out. And it was not a good situation. I don't know what any other industry would be like.
Coach is not saying that this is what all jobs in India are going to be like for any of you guys viewing this. He's talking about one specific sector that he has an experience in. So he's not telling you what it's going to be like if you work in something in the arts or in some kind of STEM field or for a tech company. He's just telling you his experience as a guy from the fitness industry. Coach, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your experience in India? We can wrap up the video with like maybe some guidance to someone who may be considering taking a position in India. You can talk about it from your perspective, obviously.
I would say don't take a position with Indian owners. Now, I've heard of people that worked in resorts that were international resorts, that maybe there would be other Westerners that were above you because they're going to kind of have an idea more of how to deal with you. I don't think they knew how to deal with me. I was the first Westerner that the new company had brought in. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to deal with me. They didn't understand the work culture of Westerners. So to protect yourself, make sure it's an international company. Make sure that there's other Westerners there. You have to have a support network. I found one with this woman and then Richard from Cobra Muay Thai and MMA. But if you don't have that, it's going to be really difficult. Again, there's not a lot of people going to India to work. It's not like Thailand where people will go and teach English for next to nothing just so they can be in Thailand, and I understand that because I love Thailand. But India, the only reason you would go there is for money. Now, does that mean that there are not beautiful places and exciting places and interesting places? Not at all. Does that mean that there's not really great people? Not at all. This particular experience was not particularly good, but it could have happened elsewhere. I mean, I've seen it happen in the States. Somebody will buy a gym, maybe a Gold's franchise or something, and it'll be a family and they won't know what they're doing. And, they try and pull some of the same stuff. But what I noticed is, from what I could understand and from what the woman was in the industry as well, and she said, look, this is India. People are not going to be straight up. People are not going to follow the contracts. You have to stand up for yourself. And you have to be prepared to say, okay, I'm done, and just leave. I did that. They owe me money. Hopefully the lawyers will be able to get me something back. I'm not, super confident that they will. But yeah, no matter how much homework you do, though, it's like anything. Until you're there, make sure that every T is crossed, every I. I should have been more specific about certain things. I thought I was. But make sure you get everything down in triplicate. Make sure everything is completely transparent, and then be prepared to fight for what they put down on paper, because they'll try and change it on a regular basis. That's one thing that'll definitely happen. It's, they'll try and tell you that you misinterpreted or read it wrong. This particular HR person, when it came to leaving the bungalow, she said, oh, well, that was just for 6 weeks. You're going to, so I had to go right straight to the owners. And I said, look, you don't put me in an apartment, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Oh, no, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. She was wrong. I think they were testing me. I think they will test you a lot. And being the fact that I'm a middle-aged guy and I have so much experience, I would be worried about a younger person, because I think they really get taken advantage of. It's kind of like the teaching industry way back in the day. And I don't know if you remember some of the horror stories from Korea from the late 90s to early 2000s, where they would just take and hold your passport and, really abuse the teachers. That doesn't really happen anymore.
Still happens here. Still happens here in Vietnam, but it doesn't happen to really native speakers from strong countries anymore. You hear about it with Africans, you hear about it with people from developing countries who are much more desperate to teach, versus people who are from like strong nationalities that a lot of times, if the relationship's bad, they can afford to lose a paycheck and go, whereas like people who are coming from like more developing countries will fall victim to that type of stuff more frequently here in Vietnam. So I guess I would say that my experience in India, because I was not working for anyone, so I wasn't getting any money, and I was just teaching, so I had a free place to train jiu-jitsu. The guys would pick me up every day, drive me to the club. They wanted me to teach their friends in the province outside of Mysore, called Korg. It's a little area, and they paid for me. The whole gym pooled money and paid for me to go, and then put me at a farm stay and paid for that. Again, it wasn't like swanky or anything, but like they all chipped in. And like, so my experience in India was so different than yours, but there's a key difference here. I was not getting paid. I was just training people. So I had a place to train, and a free place to train. And the guys would pick me up, and help me with India stuff. And I had a great experience. I absolutely love Karnataka. So I don't know if it's a state to state thing. Maybe doing business there was, harder than other places. I don't know.
I think it all really depends, on the people that you get, on the mindset that you have. I thought one of the daughters had played tennis at a high level at a university, a liberal arts university in California. So I thought she got Westerners. No, I mean, I can see them doing that. I mean, there are like really nice. I mean, the one guy, I went to the pharmacy when my stomach was bad. He put me on the back of his motorcycle and took me to get, oh, we need to go here and I'll get, you can get this. And, he would like buy me drinks and I was like, here, and he wouldn't take money for it. No, there are people, yeah, they're definitely good. But as a business, and this particular business and in general, they just really didn't know. And I think they were trying to be punitive. I think they didn't like my behavior. I think they thought, oh, this guy is too full of himself and, he should, more listen to me. But, again, I'm 53. I had people 35 who were never really in the industry or only in the industry for a couple of years. And I've worked all over the world. And I've worked in the United States in bigger markets. I've worked, in Washington, D.C. area a couple times and things like that. And they're trying to tell me about the industry. And I'm like, well, I'll listen to you when it comes to things that are Indian specific. But if you're trying to tell me how things go, the industry wise, you just don't have the experience, and that would probably, there was a bit of personal conflict there as well. But I did hear from other people, and the woman who was my friend, what had happened to her. She was in Dubai doing very well. A couple of well-off Indian women wanted to bring her to Pune and put her in her own gym chain. I think it was going to be like a ladies only. And once she had moved everything over, communication ended and it stopped. And they decided, oh no, we're going to focus our business in another direction. So that's the problem. Is I think a lot of times they think they own you, or if you don't completely do things their way, then it's no way at all. She is very, very down. She's very unhappy, but she's trying to make it work. And from what I've seen, she is making it work. She's not a quitter. And I really admire her a lot, but she moved her life because she really loved Dubai. And, for me, I had another out. I had somewhere else to go, and that's where I am here now. But, yeah, it would be a shame, like you said, for some of the other people, because I could see them getting, I tried to get a friend that I met in Nha Trang, a Russian. I said, hey, do you have any Russians that might, because they wanted me to help them bring more foreigners in to work for them. And he said, no, we're doing well here and making money. And I don't know that I would want to send anybody to India. And I showed him the text. I said, look, this is what he showed, it's just, you got to do better. It's not a desirable location. And being the fact that it's not a desirable location, you really need to know what you're doing and have a system and procedures to bring people in. And they didn't have any of that. They just completely winged it. And from my opinion and my experience, they really fumbled the ball on everything. And then to be punitive, it was withholding the money and still the money that they owe me now. I talked to my landlord. He was a really nice guy. He says, no, they should definitely give you that deposit back, the money that they took out of your pay, which unbeknownst to me, which would be a theft in the U.S. as far as I understand. He said, yeah, that's wrong in India too. And it's definitely a theft in India, but they're going to have to pay it. And they asked me, they said, hey, can we have a bank account? So I sent them a bank account, and so far nothing's been deposited. So I probably will have to send them a letter from a lawyer, and then maybe they'll pay up. I don't know.
But one suggestion I would have is, just from so many years in Asia, and I know India is not like the rest of Southeast Asia. They're obviously different, but sometimes they may still do it. It's just you have to annoy them and be on top of them and constantly bother them. And then they'll
they stopped all communication. They won't send any texts or emails back. So that's one of the reasons why. Yeah. I think they're just like, screw this guy. He walked out on us. And we had big plans, but they never followed through on anything. I never got a work uniform. I was supposed to do this MMA fitness class, and they have no idea about MMA. They have no idea about fitness. They just know that it's popular, and they never matted it out. The whole time I was there, they never matted it out. They went and got bags. I told them, I said, look, I need Muay Thai bags. They got boxing bags. They hung them wrong. I mean, just everything was... I was fighting for everything to be done correctly, and it just wasn't done. They just pulled shit, out of their asses. But I don't. Also the way that they communicate. I tried to get some kind of sponsorship for supplements, and the guys were like, "Well, he doesn't have a big social media following, and maybe we can build him up." And then they said, "Hey, why don't we do this? We'll give you all the supplements that you need for the month, and we'll give you a small stipend, which would have been like $200 US, the exchange. And you just have to come to these events." And I said, oh, that'll be great. And then I never heard any more about it. So they made this great offer. I said, yeah, I'd love to take it. I'd be happy to do it. And then it just died. Cool. So again, how do I, from my experience, from other Westerners experience, would I ever suggest India? No. I would absolutely not suggest India. But if you had to and you thought you had a solid job, I hope it's an international company. I hope that you have other foreigners that they're on staff that you can go to when you have an issue. Because, again, you're sometimes you're complaining to somebody that they're abusing just the same. They're like, oh yeah, but I put in 65 hours a week. You're like, yeah, but I'm not going to do it. I didn't travel all the way across the world and, uproot my life to come here and work 65 hours a week and get paid for X amount. What we agreed upon. So it's difficult because they just look at you and go, well, that's the way India is. Tika tika. So yeah, I mean, can be really nice people. Your situation, you had a lot more control. And I think that's important because as long as they have some control, that's going to be tough because they're going to want to try and exert that as much as possible.
Well, guys, if you found this content interesting, take a second to smash the like button, share, subscribe. If you're thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, South Asia, and you want to get any perspective, we do hourly consulting as well as full relocation packages for our network. I want to thank Coach Tyson for coming out tonight, telling us a little bit about his experience teaching fitness and exercise personal training environment in India. I was kind of curious to see what his experience was like. I'm sorry to hear it didn't go well. And I'm glad that he was able to get the story out for those of you who might be considering to do something in a similar position as he was in. I think it's interesting to get perspectives of different expats from all over the world. I don't censor anybody. I let them say whatever they want. This was his experience. Again, I wanted to stress for you guys, he's not working in tech. He's not working as an engineer or in STEM. This is just his experience in the personal training, fitness, kind of exercise science world. And I want you to take it for what it's worth, one man's opinion. And if it's helped you out, just take a second out of your day to hit subscribe, like, and share. Your big uncle appreciates you. Are you thinking of living, working, or investing in Thailand? Thailand is an amazing country that's more open than it has ever been before. They're a country that's looking into the future and doing some really radical things. It's an amazing time to be in Thailand, and there is a tremendous amount of opportunities for somebody who has an open mind. Who you deal with in Thailand will determine your experience to a great extent. If you do business with the wrong people, you can end up losing money and even in legal trouble. We have the contacts that you need to help you get on your feet in this amazing country and avoid all kinds of drama and problems that could come about by doing business with the wrong people. If you're interested in investing, working, employment, contacts for visas, contacts for housing, contacts for real estate, we got you covered.